Nearly 24 hours since the announcement of the ceasefire by President Trump, and actually, I would say about 12 hours since the actual execution of the ceasefire. We're talking about Iran and Israel, or is it Iran and Israel? We're going to just get that right finally one day, but it's been a crazy 24 hours nonetheless. Let's just talk about the TikTok real quick. See, first of all, in the last 24 hours, Iran decides that they want to go and try to get the smoke, and they retaliate with an attack on U.S. base in Qatar, and they launch, they say 14, estimates between 10 and 14 ballistic missiles and short range missiles towards our largest air base in the Middle East. It's actually happened to be where U.S. Central Command is located. CENTCOM is there. And here's the thing. We absolutely defended against all of them, between the Qataris and their air defense system, the air defense system that we have on the base itself. No casualties, no one hurt. Okay, we're rocking and rolling. I said during my live stream while it was happening yesterday, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, you turn on all notifications, because when I go live, you may want to join. I said during that live stream, there was 100% an off ramp for the United States, so that we did not have to counterattack once again. We can just take it as them just kind of like using kitten gloves. They didn't do too much, and it just wasn't that much. I mean, here is the actual ballistic missiles as they were coming in. They're being defended, they're being taken out. Some of the scraps coming out from the defenses coming in, and we absolutely were able to knock this out with no issues whatsoever. And this is from Doha, specifically when it's Doha and Qatar. So I'm thinking to myself, you know what, things are looking pretty good. You know, I think because oil prices are going down, they did this kind of milquetoast counterattack. I said in real time, I think that the buck stops here. And after that, I think I can pat myself on the back and mostly say that I was right, because after that, Tehran immediately tried to start spinning the message. They tried to immediately start telling their people that they completely destroyed the military base. This is them celebrating in the streets. And okay, we know that the internet is limited in Iran right now, but it's not completely gone. Eventually, the people will figure out that they didn't effing destroy an entire U.S. base. But as they think right now, they think that they did. They think they stood their ground. Is that Jello shots? I mean, they turn it up. That's not Jello shots, but I'm just saying, like, they're over here, they're celebrating. But I'm telling you guys, do not get complacent, because we have announced a ceasefire. There is a ceasefire, because here's the thing. One thing I got to say to you guys, and this is a quote from Vladimir Lenin: there are decades where nothing happens, and then there are weeks when decades happens. That's how it feels right now. I feel like a lot is going on. You really got to peel back the onion if you're trying to be a prepared citizen, to figure out what does this mean that you need to be preparing for. And I'm taking these signals from people I'm getting emails from, things I'm seeing in the region, and I'm not taking this stuff lightly. First off, as soon as the ceasefire was announced, Israel just started dropping their scrotum on Iran, and they just started doing one of their largest attacks that they did over the course of this war. And Iran retaliated, and they dropped ballistic missiles on an apartment building or some type of large building where people were living. They killed 4 folks, and it kind of went back and forth. Both of them, they are blaming one another for breaking the ceasefire. And at the end of the day, I will objectively say, after the ceasefire came and went, they both were doing attacks on one another. Now, they both have spun the story different ways, but even before they started talking about whose fault it was, there was attacks going on with suicide drones in Iraq. And we have this here where those suicide drones in Iraq were specifically targeting radar on these Iraqi bases. Now, these are not bases that house military troops from the U.S. That's why it doesn't have the biggest of headline news. Maybe it's possibly Iran doing suicide attacks, but why weren't they doing it on U.S. troops? I guess we'll figure that out later. But now we have both of these countries blaming each other for breaking the ceasefire, saying that they have to do the retaliation. President Trump is getting upset by it. This is what he had to say.
Rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have 2 countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
So that's probably the first presidential F-bomb ever dropped on the South Lawn as someone was on their way to Marine One ever done in presidential history. But I want you to think about what that means. He wasn't on a hot mic. That was very deliberate. He knows he's being filmed. Put yourself in the president's shoes for a second. You have to think about, he had some level of commitment from both parties before he put that truth on Truth Social. At the end of the day, he talked directly to Israel, whether it was Bibi Netanyahu or whoever. And through the Qataris, he had diplomatic talks with Iran. That's the story that he had before he went out there and he put that Truth Social out there. Now, maybe you all come out and do a joint statement. I don't know, but that's what he did. And then you come out, the ceasefire is supposed to start, and both countries are lobbing rockets at each other still. They're still killing one another. You can see he's sitting on the south lawn. He doesn't have a tie on. He's sitting there. He's kind of doing his thing. You have to imagine like exactly what that means when it comes to the level of frustration. And I think that it was a real thing. Question that I've seen a lot is, why was there a 12-hour window before the ceasefire? Why was the ceasefire not immediate? Well, if you look at the history of war, a lot of times your troops on the front line, troops in aircraft, troops on ships, I mean, they didn't have cell phones. So to get the word in, traditionally it was 24 hours. They did 12 hours in this case. That's why field watches were so incredibly important in World War II, Vietnam, all that type of stuff. Because if they didn't have comms, they didn't have radios, and you had to literally send someone to a location, they could violate an immediate ceasefire if they didn't know about it. In today's time, I don't know if a 12-hour window is as relevant, because when a ceasefire is announced, you can call back fighter jets. You can tell people to stop shooting it instantly. People have cell phones in their back right pocket, even if they're putting rounds down range. So maybe we didn't need the 12-hour window. I don't know. But I will say it did give an opportunity for a lot. It seems like that the U.S. gave the Iran an opportunity for a lot of different stuff. Specifically, we have to think about, before we actually made our drop on Fordo, we have evidence that they actually may have moved a ton of uranium. They may have moved centrifuges. They may have moved nuclear equipment. And this is the thing that has me concerned. Here, I mentioned this during my live stream yesterday. These are a bunch of trucks lined out outside of Fordo 36 to 48 hours before the strike. And so we're wondering, this is from Maxar Technologies. This is a commercial satellite company that took this photo. And then we see those same trucks still on the outside of the Fordo fuel enrichment plant. They're now starting to move around. They're giving room for some of these folks to make moves and to go here and go there. This is the underground site, March 19th, so well before the actual strike was taking place. And this is the severely damaged site that we saw a lot of photos of after we dropped all those bunker busters on there. But the thing is that these guys here, they have a vested interest. They have a vested interest to support the supreme leader, who is now in like his 38th year of command of the country. They have an interest to continue the nuclear program. They do not have an interest to give it up. And I'm not sure what we're getting from this ceasefire immediately. And that's the thing that has me concerned, because there are reports that are stating that the U.S. strikes may have only set back their nuclear program literally months, and we did not destroy those facilities at Fordo. These reports literally just came out within, some folks, I'm getting this from Reuters, I've seen it from CNN, I'm seeing it from Fox News. 10 minutes before I started recording this is June 24th, 2025. We don't have the full damage assessment, but we're already getting early reports from the ground. We didn't fully damage it. Think about what this war meant. 12-day war is what they're calling it. It's really like a 13-day war because they went past the ceasefire. They did a lot of bombing. Maybe you destroyed some command and control. You destroyed some surface-to-air missiles. You destroyed some aircrafts. You killed a bunch of scientists. But if you did not fully eliminate the nuclear program, why did we have the war? Because if you're going back to the diplomatic table, you're going back to diplomacy. Now we've only incentivized Iran to go deeper underground. We've only incentivized them to not participate in talks in the future. This ceasefire between Israel and Iran is just the modern day naming of two entities that have been fighting for centuries, the Persians and the Jews. This is not a new thing. Okay, after World War II, Jewish people were looking for a homeland. The establishment of Israel is where it came from. The fight between these two have been centuries long. And we are just now at a common age where it's now called a nuclear program. But in centuries ago, one or another didn't want them to have this, or they didn't want the other to have that. This is just the new reincarnation of that. Unless there is, and I'm not advocating for this, but the only thing that I think could stop their nuclear program is regime change. There are a lot of factions that will want regime change, folks, inside of Iran, whether it be some groups that are against the Ayatollah, against the supreme leader, of course, Israel themselves, people that are in secession of the supreme leader that are next in line, the actual military, the IRGC. There's a lot of folks that have a reason to do a coup or to bounce them up out of there, but it's not happening. It's not happening right now. So now where does that leave us? And this is where I grow concerned. I received emails from a number of companies just over the last couple of days. I got emails from Premier Body Armor. They have an uptick in sales because prepared citizens like me and you are starting to buy more SAPI plates, level 3 armor, everything that can protect themselves, actual helmets themselves. They're starting to gear up more, mainly because we just don't know what may happen. I reached out to those companies as well to see, can I get a new helmet to show you guys, which I'm going to be starting to do plate carrier videos, SAPI plate videos, helmet videos. I talked to Vertex, which I use for a lot of my clothing items, lightweight clothing, heavy duty clothing. They have an uptick in sales. And then the biggest one is Mira Safety. Their sales are going so crazy that they decided to completely cancel their 4th of July sale. And they've gone from a 4th of July sale to an instant 1-day sale. They had a preparedness sale that's starting right now. And mainly because they're having a hard time controlling their inventory. So they're having a flash sale called a preparedness sale. A lot of these people are starting to prepare themselves, whether you're getting gas masks, you're getting more plate carriers, you're getting more bags, all that type of stuff. This is the type of stuff that I think that you should be thinking about when it comes to your physical safety. And I've said this plenty of times as well. Aura. This is not sponsored by Aura, but I'm going to tell you about them again because this is what I personally use. So for my password management, I use Aura and a sprinkle of Google. Okay, mostly Aura and a sprinkle of Google. For my dark web, to see if my kids are on the dark web, me, my wife, Aura. To see if I can get data brokers to stop hitting me up all the damn time, Aura. To see if my credit report has been jeopardized, Aura. And I use that because, like I said, I was a victim of the 2014 breach that lost social security numbers, birthdays, my first and last name. And ever since then, I've been vigilant about protecting my identity. And they also protect my computers. I have a VPN on this computer right now to try my best to protect me against viruses, malware, and DDoS attacks. DDoS attacks are becoming more prevalent where they override your server and damn near shut down your internet in real time. They don't provide you a virus, but they just make it so you can't access your own network. I don't want that happening. I'll put a link down below for you to check out Aura. You're more than welcome to see if it's right for you, or check out one of their competitors. I don't particularly care. I just think that you need to start thinking about your physical safety, and you need to also start thinking about your digital safety, because I do not think this ceasefire means that they stop doing everything. It doesn't mean that. I believe that there's still incentive for bad actors to get on Americans' nerves because they did not hit our base. They didn't do it. So if the Ayatollah, if the supreme leader feels like the people don't respect him because they don't think that he kept them protected, what is the reason not to do any other type of attacks to Americans that are 8,000 miles away instead of 400 miles away across the Gulf? I see a reason for that. So these are the things I'm thinking about. The ceasefire may or may not hold. These two countries are going back and forth. They're blaming one another for breaking the ceasefire. The Iran says that missiles that launch missiles to the U.S. base, Iraq base on alert, sirens heard in Bahrain. It's so much stuff going on all over the place. You have to think about, are these two countries actually going to hold up on the ceasefire? If history is an example, no. It may take a week, a month, or 10 years, but these two groups have been going at it for a very long time. That's my number one fear. I'm also worried about number two, that a half a ton of enriched uranium was moved. I'm very nervous that a half a ton of enriched uranium was moved. I think it could have been moved underground. It could have been moved to Pickaxe Mountain. I talked about that in yesterday's video. If you want to check that out, I'll link that up for you as well. There's a fourth site, which it's near Natanz. I'm not sure if we hit that site, if they're using that site. It's purported to be twice as deep as Fordo. And apparently, according to these first reports, we may not have even destroyed Fordo. So now I'm worried about 1,000 pounds of rich uranium that they can speed their way towards weapons grade and make a dirty bomb. Speaking of that, I'm worried about number 3, centrifuges and high-end instruments that they were able to get out of Fordo as well. Some centrifuges are small enough to fit in the trunk of a car. We don't know if they had the larger centrifuges like the gas powered ones that help with the enrichment of the uranium that can't fit in the trunk of a car. We don't know if they had the smaller ones. Literally, Israel can't just sit out at Fordo and look at every car and bomb all of them. They can't do that. Well, they could, but they didn't do that. So if you're not sure which vehicle has the centrifuges, you're not sure if they move the rich uranium, they could still speed their way towards getting themselves a bomb. And the next thing, and the biggest thing, is the battle damage assessment. We do not know how effective our bombs were, because as it stands right now, the first intelligence reports that we're getting is that it failed to destroy Iran's nuclear sites. It says sites plural. I don't know if it's Fordo, if it's Natanz, if it's all of them. Isfahan, whatever that last one's called. And then Pickaxe Mountain is one that I've been concerned about as well. I think all of them, we need people on the ground, whether they're spies, whether it's operators, whether we have people that are, pretending to be loyal to Iran, but they're actually giving intelligence to us. We need to know how effective our missiles were. But if they weren't that effective, then we know in the future to take this type of stuff out, we either need to pay these defense contractors like Raytheon to build a bigger bomb, or we're going to have to go on the ground. Those are like the options to do this stuff. One thing I want to say is you have to respect the mission that our troops were able to pull off, regardless if it worked or it didn't work. This was the first time we used this type of munitions in war. The command and control that we did, that's the sinking of aircraft, the making sure that they were escorted, softening up the target with those F-22s and F-35s. The command and control was phenomenal. The operational security, I think this administration learned from their first operation in Yemen when they were doing it over signal. This operational security was tight. No one knew about it. No one knew what was going on. I like how good the operational security was for this. Operational deception was so freaking good. You have former Supreme Allied commanders of NATO. You have former 4-star generals, former dopes like me that were enlisted, all trying to figure out why are they sending B-2s west towards Guam. They actually were doing a deception. Some of those B-2s peeled off because once B-2s are in the air, you can't track them anymore. Of course, you can see them take off. You can see that. But once B-2s are in the air, you're not tracking them anymore. Some of them peeled off and went east. The operational deception was on top. Love it or hate it, you got to respect that. But I still want you to protect yourself. Be a prepared citizen. Don't get complacent because we went to a ceasefire. And I think everyone is wrong, and they're just sliming all over ourselves and congratulating ourselves for peace. I'm glad that there are no more rounds being put down range, but that doesn't mean the threat is over. I still think until we know where that uranium is, and if they're still going to try to do anything with cyber and proxies, we still need to protect ourselves. First time stopping by, hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. Comment down below. What do you think? Do you think that everything's all peasy? You're going to go back to life as normal? Stop watching the news, turn off channels like mine? Feel free. But I think you should continue to prepare yourself and always be ready to rock and roll. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.